Good evening, dear viewers. I hope everyone is having a great day. My name is Fatma Al-Hajri and this is Hala Kuwait. Here we talk about different topics and discuss different issues. And today we'll bring you something new. As always, this evening I'm joined by my co-host Tariq. Good evening, Tariq.
Good evening, Fatma. How are you tonight?
I'm doing great. What about you?
I'm doing also very well. As usual, the camera crew have been very busy filming all around the state of Kuwait. We have a lot of great reports to get you caught up on tonight's episode, time permitting. Also, we have some distinguished guests who will be joining us right here in the studio. In about 5 minutes' time, we'll be joined by His Excellency, the Indian Ambassador to the state of Kuwait. That'll be coming up very shortly. What do we have coming up, our first report this evening, Fatma?
Well, Tariq, our first report for this evening, it's about Masonite. So stay tuned after this report.
Stay tuned for the next guest. Moissanite is naturally occurring silicon carbide and its various crystalline polymorphs. It has the chemical formula SiC and is a rare mineral, discovered by the French chemist Henri Moissan in 1893. Silicon carbide is useful for commercial and industrial applications due to its hardness, optical properties, and thermal conductivity. The mineral was discovered while examining rock samples from a meteor crater located in Canyon Diablo in Arizona in 1893. At first, Moissan mistakenly identified the crystals as diamonds, but in 1904 he identified the crystals as silicon carbide. Artificial silicon carbide had been synthesized in the lab by Edward G. Acheson just 2 years before Moissan's discovery. The mineral form of silicon carbide was named in honor of Moissan later on in his life. For the physical properties of the moissanite, the crystalline structure is held together with strong covalent bonding similar to diamonds. This allows the moissanite to withstand high pressure up to 52.1 gigapascals. Colors vary widely and are graded from D to K range on the diamond color grading scale. Many people confuse diamonds with moissanite, but of course diamond experts know the difference. Many people also opt for buying moissanite instead of diamonds because it's more affordable and it has almost the same properties.
Well, we're back right here in the studio, and I hope everyone out there is having a very nice evening. We have with us right now His Excellency Dr. Adarsh Swaika. He is the Indian Ambassador to the state of Kuwait. Your Excellency, welcome to our program, Hala Kuwait.
Thank you. Good evening, Masalik hai. Thank you for hosting me on this show today. Namaskar and Salam Alaikum to all, to you and the viewers. In this very short time I have been in Kuwait, I have seen a very positive and pleasant outlook from our Kuwaiti friends.
Well, we'd like to welcome you to the state of Kuwait, Mr. Ambassador, and maybe you could tell our audience a little bit about your impressions of the country so far, sir.
Yeah, sure. I think that has been one of the striking features of my interactions with my Kuwaiti friends, whether it has been in the government or in the civil society. I think they have been very forthcoming and very positive in their outlook. And one thing that has really struck me is that whenever I meet my Kuwaiti friends, they always recall the deep connections they have in India. They have
and
with
India and Kuwait have a long storied friendship, Mr. Ambassador.
Yes, and that is why it's truly special to be as an Indian ambassador to Kuwait, and it's like being at home.
Well, we're very happy that you feel at home, your second home, Mr. Ambassador, and could you please tell us a little bit about yourself and where you served before, sir?
You know, Mr. Tariq, as from the education background, I have studied chemistry. I hold a PhD degree in chemistry, but then I switched to the world of diplomacy. I have been in the Indian Foreign Service for over 20 years now. I have served in a number of countries, including in Russia, Bulgaria, China, and last in Bangladesh. Even at headquarters in New Delhi, I have worked in different capacities. I was in the UN division at a very, very crucial time when we were doing the UN SDG negotiation and the Paris Climate Treaty negotiations, and I was really fortunate to be in the Indian negotiating team during that time. Thereafter, in my last stint, I handled a couple of portfolios, starting with the Indian Ocean region, which again is a very, very important division from our perspective, the India's neighborhood first policy. I also handled the consular and passport division for a while. And then before coming to Kuwait, I was handling the Eurasia division, which deals with Russia and Central Asian countries. And I was involved intricately in evacuation of Indian nationals from Ukraine under Operation Ganga. So I think this is what I have been in the Foreign Service. As of my personal life, myself, my wife, and my 2 children are here in Kuwait, and they are really enjoying your hospitality.
Well, Mr. Ambassador, we're very happy to have you and your family right here in the state of Kuwait, and it's a pleasure that you take some time off from your busy schedule to be with us this evening. And maybe now you could please elaborate a little bit about the strong bilateral friendship and the friendship between Kuwait and India, sir.
No, I think as you said, the strong bilateral friendship is not something which is very contemporary, but which is traditionally and which has been time tested. In fact, our people-to-people linkages over the centuries, particularly in the 19th and 20th century, when and the fact that until 1961, Indian rupee was the legal tender in Kuwait. So that is a very, very poignant fact of a relationship. In the 19th and 20th centuries, the Kuwaitis who were involved in merchant and harbor activities, in pearl diving, in fishing, going for voyages to India, carrying dates, Arabian horses, and then they traded with India. They got cereals, they got wood, spices. So there was a very, very strong connection between India and Kuwait.
Yeah, the leadership's also very
yes,
good friendship.
Yes, and that is why the relationship, I would say, it is a people-to-people level, which I cannot say that may be true for many other countries.
Mr. Ambassador, now maybe you could tell us a little bit more in detail about the bilateral relationship between India and Kuwait. Maybe talk a little bit, you touched on the political, maybe touch a little bit more on that, the political, economic, trade, and so forth.
No, so Mr. As I just mentioned, that the whole relationship stands on a very strong people-to-people linkages. So if the structure, if the foundation is people-centric, the structure has to be solid, and that is very, very true for India-Kuwait partnership. And India was one of the first countries to to establish diplomatic relations with Kuwait. We celebrated 60 years of our diplomatic relationship in 2021, and we marked it to various bilateral activities both in India and in Kuwait. And I think the strong bilateral component is also because the leadership of both countries attach very high importance to our relations. So on the political side, the relationship is excellent, and we look forward to newer heights for relations. You mentioned about economic and cultural part. Again, on the economic part, we have been natural trading partners. from centuries. So I think that economic partnership has also been very solid. Today the bilateral trade stands at around $12.5 billion, and today, while India is crucial for your food security needs, you are crucial for our energy security needs. So there is a very symbiotic relationship. But then there is also a lot of scope for enhancement in the bilateral trade, and I think we have to move from the oil-based and food grain-based model to other areas, and that is where I think my focus would be there. There are a lot of new developments, particularly in high-tech areas like digital economy, like IT sector, space cooperation, renewable energy. So I think there are a lot of areas where we can work, collaborate, cooperate, and I think this is where the focus of my tenure as an ambassador to India would be, and I would look forward to equal support from your side, because it is a win-win partnership for both sides.
Hopefully during your tenure, Mr. Ambassador,
Yes.
this relationship will even be enhanced to
no,
an
that
even
is
higher level.
Yeah, that is what the focus of our work would be.
Sure.
You also mentioned about culture. Culture is something which India is known for,
Yes.
and I think that is something, that is why the
You have
embassy
some
has
events
been.
maybe coming up, cultural events.
Yes, and the embassy has been, I think, very, very active on this sphere. As I mentioned, when in 2021 we celebrated the 60 years of diplomatic relationship, we unleashed a number of cultural events. In fact, I would say the statistics are mind-boggling. We almost organized more than 250 events in the last 2 years, and again I would say this is a cultural week of India in Kuwait. Last weekend we had Indian Sarod Maestro Ustad Amjad Ali Khan perform with his 2 sons, and it was a magical performance. Those who would have seen it will vouchsafe for it. Similarly, we have 2 upcoming programs this weekend. We have 3 very renowned cultural troupes who will showcase Bollywood fusion, Qawwali, and also Rajasthani folk dance music. One event will be held on 17th, that is an open event in Salmiya Theatre, and other on 18th on Yarmouk, which is by invitation. So we look forward to more and more Kuwaiti friends, other people to join us on 17th at the Salmiya Theatre.
And the audience can find out more about this, I think, on the various accounts of the Indian Embassy.
Yes, we have advertised on the social Twitter and the Facebook of the embassy, and you will find all the details of registration. A very simple registration. Please do look out for it, and I am sure people will enjoy it.
Look forward to these great events coming up, Your Excellency. And there was also, before we move on to some of the other questions, very strong collaboration during the pandemic was very important between the 2 countries. Maybe you could shed some light on that, sir.
Yes, indeed. I think that that was indeed remarkable because what we did during COVID times, the cooperation that has set the bar for bilateral cooperation very high. In fact, Kuwait sent a large consignment of liquid medical oxygen to India at the time of need when we were struggling with the second wave. Similarly, the dispatch of a medical team from India to Kuwait and supply of made in India COVID vaccines, I think that was widely appreciated by our leadership and your country. So I think COVID was a very, very good collaboration which we could set ourselves. And in that context, I would also mention that that India had been at the forefront in the global campaign against of providing medicines and COVID vaccines to more than 100 countries in the world, and that is why India is today called the pharmacy of the world. So
True.
I think that was really remarkable, the cooperation we did in the COVID times.
It was amazing, and that cooperation has always been there, and I'm sure will always be there in the future. Mr. Ambassador, there's as you know, a very big Indian community in the state of Kuwait, and I'm sure that keeps the embassy very busy. Maybe you could tell our audience a little bit about that, sir.
No, you're right. The Indian community is big. Not only big, but it is the largest expatriate community in Kuwait.
Yes.
And that also speaks of the perseverance, the trustworthiness and hardworking nature of the community.
Yes.
And many of them you would come
Have been
across.
here decades.
Yes, they have been here for decades, generations, and they have contributed immensely
Very true.
to the society, to the economy.
And part of the fabric of Kuwait.
Yes, and I would say wherever I go, I find Indians everywhere. So they are omnipresent, I would say, every sector, every profession. And we thank the leadership, His Highness the Crown Prince, His Highness the Amir, His Highness the Prime Minister, the government and the people of Kuwait for taking care of the large Indian community and ensuring their welfare as well. So that is one part of our Indian community, but with it also comes challenges. They keep it, they keep
Sure.
us on our toes on a 24/7 basis. And we have designed various consular practices to help them in the times of need. Our consular delivery mechanisms are very robust. We have 12 WhatsApp lines, dedicated lines to address various problems.
Very good.
I personally conduct an open house every week where
nice.
people can come personally and tell the grievances. We look into it, how better we can resolve. And recently we started a very new practice of reaching people in far-flung areas, those who cannot reach us. And we did a consular camp in Wafra in February. This month we are going to do in Jahara region. So I think we are very open to suggestions both from the Kuwaiti side, from the Indian nationals, as to how better we can improve our consular services, because there is scope for improvement every time.
Good to hear that, Mr. Ambassador. And our next question, actually, we could spend the next hour or the next few days just talking about the beautiful places to see in your country. So people in Kuwait, as you know, like to travel. Maybe you could tell us some of the beautiful places to see in your country in a short amount of time, please.
Yeah, that's a challenging part of it to say about some places,
Sure.
because if you say every state in India offers a unique opportunity.
True,
and I would say that somehow India has been bestowed with the geography, the climate, the culture, which every tourist would like to. So you go to one region, if you want to go for wildlife, there are umpteen number of places. You want to go to mountains, you want to go to beaches, you want to go to backwaters of Kerala, you want to enjoy the magnificent palaces. I think there is everything for every genre of tourists, I would say. So I think, and now I think we have also combined tourism for leisure as well as tourism for wellness. So that also is a growing sector. Particularly Kuwaitis are going, a lot of Kuwaitis are going for Ayurveda treatments, for massages, and I think that is a very, very good segment of tourism which is developing. So I would encourage many Kuwaiti friends who are watching the show that please do include India in your itinerary, and I can tell you that any tourist who has any kind of yearning for tourism would find places.
Can't go wrong.
Yeah, you can't go wrong. You're right. You can't go wrong. It will be right.
So much to see and do, and just speaking of the cuisine, also very good. I mean, just everything.
Yes, every state you go, the
Sure.
food will change,
Yes,
the dressing
yes.
sense will change, the dances
A lot
will
of
change.
culture,
So I
a
think
lot to
that
see there.
yes, surely.
Mr. Ambassador, you know, we see that India is holding the G20 presidency, the SCO presidency this year. We also see that India has come with a lot of initiatives like International Solar Alliance, CDRI, Life, etc. What would you like to tell our audience about India's diplomacy and rising profile in today's world, sir?
No, you're right. We have been having a very, very intensive global calendar insofar as international events are concerned. We are currently holding the G20 presidency. I think we took it in 1st of December 2022, and there are more than 200 events spread all across the country, and that will culminate into the G20 summit in September later this year. We are also holding the Shanghai Cooperation Organization presidency, of which Kuwait is the new dialogue partner. We just concluded our 2-year non-permanent UNSC tenure, which was the 8th time we held this post. So we have had a very, very busy calendar. You mentioned about some international initiatives. Yes, we have been spearheading many of these international initiatives, like the International Solar Alliance, the Coalition for Disaster Resilient Infrastructure, the One Sun, One World, One Grid concept. I think, but most of these concepts you would feel are based on a age-old philosophy of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. The world is a one family. And I think most of these initiatives also for the good of humanity as a whole. So that is where we come from when we talk of international initiatives. And we really have a very busy calendar this year.
Well, Mr. Ambassador, it was a real honor and a pleasure to have you with us this evening right here on Hala Kuwait. Do you have any last words or comments for the audience watching the program this evening?
No, my last words would be for every Kuwaiti who is watching this show. Please look at the new and self-reliant India. There are many opportunities there, whether it is business or tourism. And what you hear or what you read is very different from what you see and actually experience. So we are here to connect India and Kuwait, and I'm sure that the opportunities in India today will take advantage, and we look forward to a very, very good cooperation between India and Kuwait, and also at the people-to-people level. So before I end, I also take this opportunity to wish Ramadan Mubarak and Ramadan Kareem on the advent of the holy month of Ramadan.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, for your time and valuable insight with us this evening. And we hope to have you on our program in the near future and many more times also on Hala Kuwait. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. We'd like to thank His Excellency Dr. Adarsh Swaika, Indian Ambassador to the State of Kuwait, for his time with us this evening right here on Hala Kuwait. Right now we're going to be moving on, take a look at another one of our great reports tonight right here on the program. Stay tuned.
Stay tuned for the next guest. Ramla Khaila is a land bridge and border checkpoint connecting both the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and the Sultanate of Oman directly through the desert of Rub' al-Khali. Administratively belonging to Al-Ahsa Governorate in the eastern province of Saudi Arabia, and is 564 kilometers long. This is the only bridge that shortens the distance between the two countries. The border crossing between the two countries was inaugurated in 2006. The checkpoint is located in the heart of the Rub' al-Khali Desert. In 2006, the two countries agreed to establish a border between them. This border is called from the Omani side as Ramla Khaila and from the Saudi side as the Rub' al-Khali. The land bridge starts from Harad in Saudi territory and continues towards the 319-kilometer-long Sheba oil field. It then heads towards the new 247-kilometer border crossing with the Sultanate of Oman, thus shortening the 800-kilometer distance that travelers used to travel between the two countries, the latter requiring first passage to the United Arab Emirates. The total cost of the Saudi-Oman border project is about 950 million riyals. That's almost $250 million. And the high cost of the project is due to the fact that the road passes through the Rub' al-Khali Desert, a desert area covered with enormous sand dunes, which made the construction of the road more difficult as the amount of sand dunes is heavy. The Rub' al-Khali is the only land point that directly connects the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and the Sultanate of Oman through the Rub' al-Khali Desert.
Welcome back, dear viewers. We're joined here in the studios of Hala Kuwait with our second guest, Layla Kalbam, medical student at Kuwait University and head of program of IIM Conference Qatar 2023. Of course, it's a real pleasure to have you here in the studios of Hala Kuwait.
The pleasure is all mine. Thank you.
You're most welcome. Of course, we're very excited for the conference. Can you tell us more about the conference?
Okay, so first of all, thank you for having me again. So IIM Conference, or Insights into Internal Medicine, is a medical conference that was organized by students and for students in Qatar this January of 2023. So I guess the special thing about this conference is, like I said, it was organized completely by students. So a group of us students in Kuwait University, Faculty of Medicine, a student union called Academia. I had the honor of being in the organizing committee as head of program. And we had different doctors from different subspecialties, as well as from different countries in the Gulf. So joining us were over 100 medical students and over 18 doctors from Qatar, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia. And there were many different lectures and workshops that the students enjoyed.
I'm sure it must have been very hard for you to organize this, because it's a lot of numbers of students and doctors for the conference, and it's in a different location out of Kuwait in Qatar. And of course, earlier we talked about you had it differently before in Dubai several years ago.
Yeah.
So what made you change the location to Qatar instead of Dubai?
Yeah, so before COVID-19, the conference used to be in Dubai. This year, we decided on Qatar, first of all, for a change, but mostly because in the past few years, Qatar has been advancing in many fields, both economically and medically as well. So we thought that it would be a chance for us to see the newest technologies, be inspired and learn from them.
Of course, and this is an amazing photo of the conference that you held a few days ago. I think, was it, when was it exactly?
January.
January, of course. I think it's very exciting to see everyone come through, students, doctors sharing experience, backgrounds. And I'm sure there's a lot of things that happened during the conference, and we'd like to know more about the purpose behind it.
Okay, so the conference comprised of different subspecialties. So we had cardiology, neurology, gastroenterology, and many others. So one of the goals of this conference was to allow students to gain knowledge about the different subspecialties, especially since there were students from year 1 all through year 7. So in that way, they would learn more about the subspecialties and also be inspired by the different doctors that were attending. We also had workshops included. For example, they learned how to use an ultrasound in emergency situations, learned about injecting insulin, and so it was also to get them to gain practical skills for their future use.
Of course, and this is one of the most important things that they learned from the experience of this conference. What else did they learn?
I think we made it a point to also include not just medical lectures, but also things that had to do with ethics and understanding patients, how to communicate properly. So actually we had psychiatrists, a group of psychiatrists from Qatar in different subspecialties, for example, addiction, childhood and adolescence, and they basically taught us, like in a workshop face-to-face, how to break bad news, how to communicate with patients, so that we could also teach students to be better doctors, not just medically, but also like
how to interact with the patients.
Yes.
Of course, that can be very hard sometimes, especially if the patients have anger issues, or sometimes, you know, the patient can be very stressed. So you need to relax them, make them at ease when you communicate with them, especially when you deliver bad news or even good news. And as a medical student, how important do you think it is to spread medical awareness among people?
I definitely think it's very important, both on a personal level and a community level. So I think it's important for us to try to always be knowledgeable of things that people may not know. Try to give, not give our advice, but try to, when it's appropriate, to give our advice or spread awareness. And then on a community level, I think that students from Kuwait University are very active in this field. So there's always campaigns, whether it's in malls, in Barkia, everywhere there are online campaigns. So I think community awareness is definitely a big factor, and I'm proud of my teammates and my colleagues in Kuwait University for being very active in this field.
Of course, we've seen them very active, as you mentioned, in malls as well, and helping about first aid kit. That was in the Avenues Mall. I think it's amazing all that they do, especially that they have a lot of work, a lot of studies, and they make the effort and time to help spread awareness when it comes to the medical field and to teach people more about it. I think medical awareness is very important, and as a student, I'm sure you had a lot of difficulties. So can you share some of the difficulties you faced?
Yeah, so I would say in the conference or in general?
In general.
In general. I think the biggest difficulty is balance, because we have a lot of responsibilities and studying to do. It's hard to balance our academic life, our social, and also because I think medical students tend to want to do so many things. So balancing the social life, our hobbies, our academics, and our future career is a little bit hard.
Especially with time management,
Yes,
you really have to
exactly.
take care of the time.
Yeah, so
Of
that's
course.
probably the hardest aspect.
And when it comes to the conference, what was the difficulties?
There were many, honestly. Each year, the organizing committee is different. So all of us in the organizing committee, it was our first time organizing a conference abroad, out of Kuwait. I think every detail was difficult, but it was challenging in a very fun way.
Of course, it can be very exciting.
Yeah. I think I learned a lot of lessons over the time. I learned the importance of teamwork, the importance of adapting to the new challenges that come in our way.
Of course.
It was a fruitful experience.
Of course, and hopefully you'll have many more, and we'll have you here in the series of Hala Kuwait to talk more about different conferences and all the things you went to as a medical student. And as a medical student, what message would you like to deliver to our dear viewers who are watching you right now?
I think I would say that always challenge yourself. Try to become the best version of yourself, while also forgiving yourself for sometimes being tired. That would be my best advice. As long as you're doing your best and trying new things, that's more than enough.
Of course. Thank you so much for being here and for this amazing advice.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's our pleasure. Well, dear viewers, we had with us Layla Kadhim, medical student at Kuwait University, head of the program for IIM Conference Qatar 2023. Let's move on to our next report. It's about artificial intelligence. Stay tuned.
Artificial intelligence is a wide-ranging branch of computer science concerned with building smart machines capable of performing tasks that typically require human intelligence. In general, AI systems work by ingesting large amounts of labeled training data, analyzing the data for correlations and patterns, and using these patterns to make predictions about future states. In this way, for example, a chatbot that is fed examples of text chats can learn to produce lifelike exchanges with people. Or an image recognition tool can learn to identify and describe objects in images by reviewing millions of examples. The easiest way to understand how a machine becomes intelligent with AI is to compare it to how humans learn. For example, consider a child learning how to ride a bicycle. The child mounts the bicycle, grips the handlebars, and hopes to stay upright and in control. The child does not learn how to ride a bike by understanding the physics of biking, but rather through trial and error. Over time, the child becomes instinctively adept in perceiving factors that can make him lose control of the bicycle. Just as a child learns the unwritten rules of riding a bicycle through practice, artificial intelligence is developed through repeated simulation. AI programming focuses on 3 cognitive skills: learning, reasoning, and self-correction. As the hype around AI has accelerated, vendors have been scrambling to promote how their products and services use AI. Often, what they refer to as AI is simply one component of AI, such as machine learning. AI requires a foundation of specialized hardware and software for writing and training machine learning algorithms. Artificial neural networks and deep learning artificial intelligence technologies are quickly evolving, primarily because AI processes large amounts of data much faster and makes predictions more accurately than humanly possible.
Well, we're back right here in the studio, and I hope everyone out there is having a great evening. Wherever you may be watching tonight's episode of the program, that was a very interesting interview that you had there, Fatma.
I'm very proud of the medical students nowadays. I think they have a lot of efforts, and they really put a lot of efforts and time when it comes to spreading awareness about medical awareness, and it happens in the avenues. And this guest was talking about the conference that happened in Qatar in January, and I think it's just amazing to see them putting all these efforts out there.
Yeah, she was very enthusiastic. You could tell she had a lot of passion for the work that she and her colleagues were doing, and we wish all those medical students all the best of luck in their future endeavors. And also we'd like to welcome His Excellency, the Indian Ambassador to the state of Kuwait. It was his first interview that he had, and it was a pleasure to have him, Fatma, with us right here on Hala Kuwait. That was also a very informative and good interview, and we'd like to thank him for his time with us this evening right here on Hala Kuwait. And right now we're going to be moving on to another one of our great reports, and it's about the very beautiful sport of tennis. So let's take a look at this report and then be back with you. Stay tuned.
The game of tennis, original name lawn tennis, is a game in which two opposing players, singles or pairs of players, doubles, use tautly strung rackets to hit a ball of specified size, weight, and bounce over a net on a rectangular court. Points are awarded to a player or team whenever the opponent fails to correctly return the ball within the prescribed dimensions of the court. Organized tennis is played according to rules sanctioned by the International Tennis Federation, the world governing body of the sport. Tennis originally was known as lawn tennis, and formerly still is in Britain, because it was played on grass courts by Victorian gentlemen and ladies. It is now played on a variety of surfaces. The origins of the game can be traced to a 12th to 13th century French handball game called Jeu de Paume, game of the palm, from which was derived a complex indoor racket and ball game, real tennis. This ancient game is still played to a limited degree and is usually called real tennis in Britain, court tennis in the United States, and royal tennis in Australia. The modern game of tennis is played by millions in clubs and on public courts. While tennis can be enjoyed by players of particularly any level of skill, top competition is a demanding test of both shot making and stamina, rich in stylistic and strategic variety. Tournaments offer tens of millions of dollars in prize money annually.
And with that, we come to the end of tonight's episode of Hala Kuwait. I hope you enjoyed all that we brought to you on this evening's episode. Make sure to enjoy the rest of your viewing this evening and all throughout the week, right here on KTV2, the family channel. Before I leave you, remember to always take care of yourselves and each other, and let's always remember to respect one another. Have a nice evening, and good night for now.
Good night.